Okay, hey, we are on, so let me introduce Bill Evans from New Beginnings Christian Church here in Urbandale, and it's wonderful to have all of you here, wonderful to have Bill. He has a sustainability workshop for us. Thanks for putting this together, Bill.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this beautiful, beautiful spring Earth Day. And remind me, wasn't last year pretty much the same weather? I was thinking we were going to go out and walk the labyrinths, and we kind of went, yeah, no. Well, we're going to stay warm and enjoy ourselves here inside today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for attending. We're hoping to shine a little light today on ways to live a more sustainable life, as well as learn about some local businesses and some other institutions that might help us just do that. As the Creation Care team at New Beginnings has worked to educate ourselves on environmental issues and the changing climate, we've often felt overwhelmed with the enormity of the problems we face. The question that so many people seem to have is, what can we, or more to the point, what should we be doing about all of these issues that we're becoming so acutely aware of? So, since today is a celebration, we don't want to use our time together to focus on sharing the gloomy prospects that we face, but rather we want to focus on ideas for some things we can do, both as individuals and as communities of faith, in some small way to be part of the solution rather than continuing to contribute to the problem. Click. There we go. Today's presentation draws its inspiration in part from the Eco Bible. This is, as of a couple of weeks ago, now a 2-volume set of commentaries. They are based on the Torah, or the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The authors are Rabbi Yonatan Nerel, and I apologize if I messed up that pronunciation, and Rabbi Leo D. And they're both associated with the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development in Israel. The Eco Bible draws on 3,500 years of religious wisdom to reveal some faith-based commentaries on ecological sustainability. And I highly recommend this resource for learning what our Judeo-Christian heritage has to teach us about such things as human health, preservation of biodiversity, and clean air, land, and water. The Eco Bible can be ordered from Amazon, or you can borrow mine. But if you want to just kind of get an introduction to the Eco Bible before you make that purchase, I encourage you to pick up a handout titled Your 7-Step Faith-Based Blueprint to a Sustainable Life. And that will give you a lot of information. One of the things they do in these books is, after each section, they kind of have action ideas. Here's some things you can do. And a lot of those are captured in this blueprint document, which you'll find over on the keyboard there. We're going to have, incidentally, we're going to have a lot of handouts, and so it's going to be one of those things where, and yes, we have a handout for that. So every time I say that, they're all in the same place there. So, what do we mean when we talk about leading a sustainable life? The concept of sustainability is starting to be used a lot and maybe overused. The problem with the term is that there's just really no agreement on its definition. If you Google this term, you're likely to find hundreds of attempts to define the concept. But The one from the EPA website I liked because it was kind of simple and it didn't go into a bunch of things that sort of complicate the definition. And I'll just read it in case that font isn't big enough for you. Sustainability is based on a simple principle. Everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends either directly or indirectly on our natural environment. To pursue sustainability is to create and maintain the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony to support present and future generations. And in order for us to kind of stay within our time constraints today, I'm going to focus on just a couple of two broad areas that individuals and communities of faith can work on to live more sustainably. And if you know me, you know that one of them has to be food, and the other is energy conservation. And incidentally, it happens to be that when we first started talking with Carol Devine, the Green Chalice minister, about, there's a lot to unpack here, you know. What is your advice? That's exactly what she said. Focus on food and conserving energy. So we're in good company in that regard. Click. So let's start with food. And our first big idea today is that when possible, buy food locally. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, and I'm just going to highlight a few. Local food tends to be fresher because it is transported over a shorter distance. Local food can be more nutritious because there can be a loss in nutrients when food has to travel a long distance. Local food results in less pollution and lower carbon emissions for the same reason, not transported as far. Local food quite often is sold without additional packaging, so less waste. So lots of good reasons to do that. Supporting local farms that use sustainable practices may allow us to boost biodiversity. It may protect pollinators that are vital to healthy ecosystems. And it may promote clean air, water, and soil. So farmers markets are a great place to stock up on fresh produce and other items during warmer months. And if you can't or you don't choose to go to the big market downtown, and I can kind of get that. The last time I was there, it was just kind of hard to move between all the people and the pets. But if you can't do that or don't want to do that, there are, in the greater Des Moines area, farmers markets every night of the week, you know, Monday through Friday. And in case you don't know where they are, there's a handout over there that lists them all and tells you exactly where to find them and when to find them and when they run, because some of them don't even start till June, but by the time we get into summer, there will be something every night that you can go to, which is good. Click. We have some other sources of local food around here that people may or may not know about. One that I've kind of discovered in the last 6 months or so is the Iowa Food Cooperative. This is in the Franklin Plaza area, 4944 Franklin. And they provide local foods on a year-round basis. And they allow you to go online, pick out what you want. It's a very nice website to use. And order it, and then you just go there and you pick it up on Fridays usually. There's a handout over there that talks about their products. Note, however, that it's a little bit out of date because just recently they have added more hours and they're open more days. So check their website before you go over there because they may be open now when they weren't in the past.
They also have satellite locations.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes. Lutheran Services in Iowa, their Immigrant and Refugee Community Services, operates the Global Greens Community Supported Agriculture Program. And through a seasonal subscription, you can receive weekly certified naturally grown vegetables grown by former refugees in the central Iowa area. This is a great way to get fresh produce and maybe to learn about some new foods and to help out our former refugee neighbors. We had a lunch and learn about this program and others that they're doing this last Wednesday at New Beginnings, and I had no idea everything that they're involved in community gardening and everything. So it's this is just one of the things that they do, but a very good one. They have, I believe, two different. I think they have a spring and a fall. Maybe I'm getting that confused. Anyway, you can check their website, and it's possible. Some of these subscription plans kind of fill up, and so it might be that soon you won't even be able to get it for this summer. But I think they do it again in the fall. So check them out. Dog Patch Urban Gardens Farm Stand is open Wednesdays and Saturdays from 10 to 4. They're located at 5085 Meredith Drive. And they also have what they call a modified community-supported agriculture program. And we have a handout over there that describes it for those that are interested. So, one more, and even more. And I'm kind of embarrassed that I'm so late to the game on this one. Apparently it's been going on for some time, but the Central Iowa Shelter has a greenhouse. And starting last year, they started expanding it so that what they do is they grow fresh produce and they use it there in their kitchens at the shelter, but they also sell it. And they got a nice contribution from the Shane family and allowed them to build a brand new greenhouse, which is 4 times larger than the old one. And it includes what they call a hydrocycle aquaponics system. And I'm sure we all know what that is. I almost made a handout about it. They had a nice picture of how it works with the fish, and they take the fish poo and use that to fertilize the plants, and then the plants clean the water, and it goes, it recycles back to the fish, and it's just I don't know who thought of it, but it's a wonderful system. And it's low maintenance and a self-sustaining food source kind of thing. They're also, and this was exciting to me, I was just down there Thursday night. We did our cooking there on Thursday night, and they are creating an urban agri-hood. And I'm sure you know what that is too. That's a combination of agriculture and neighborhood, where they do large-scale gardening practices, but integrated within a park-like community. And it'll be maintained by shelter employees and clients at the shelter, and then volunteers. So this 4-acre addition will increase the shelter's ability to grow and harvest fruits and vegetables, generating about 75,000 pounds of produce each year for the kitchen and the community. This broadened capacity will provide more food, meals, and nutrition for public consumption. And the way you can participate in that, I'm sure they would love to have your donations if you think that's a worthy cause. But the other thing you can do is, if you go over to Iowa Food Cooperative over on Franklin, they sell the Central Iowa Shelter produce. So that's a good place to pick that up. You can support them in that way as well. Next one. Okay, where's Ken? Ken, this one's for you. Okay, eat less meat. There, I said it. Notice I didn't say eat no meat. But since we're talking about sustainability today, it just needs to be said that our current level of meat consumption in the world is simply unsustainable. Livestock farming today is responsible for more greenhouse gas emission than all global transportation combined. And we're cutting down our old growth forests, which are essentially the lungs of the planet, to plant crops needed to feed these animals to satisfy our insatiable desire for meat products. Did you know, for instance, that less than 6% of the soybeans grown in the world are fed to humans? Oh, I forgot. I wasn't going to be doom and gloom today. So what do we do? Well, one small thing we can do is Meatless Monday. Karen and I choose to go without meat on Mondays. Obviously, there's nothing special about Mondays other than it's alliterative with meatless. So if we're not able to go meatless on any given Monday, we move it to a different meatless day. The impact of this, though, is to reduce our meat intake by at least 14% a week. And the effect can be larger than 14% because the discipline involved in having to come up with a special menu on that day once a week really allows us to try more plant-based recipes. And sometimes, believe it or not, we like them enough that we insert them back in the rotation that week. So we may have more than one meatless day in any given week. But that's a small way. And my sense is, and it's going to be a long transition, but my sense is that at some point we will simply have to, in some way, cut back on how much we're eating. And so no time like the present to kind of get started on that and learn some new ways to operate. And we're ready for the next one. This is kind of a big one too. Waste less food. Anybody have an idea of how much of our food is wasted? According to the Department of Agriculture, 30 to 40% of it, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. So we've got some tips over there on a sheet, and these come from the Mayo Clinic Health System. I'll run through them pretty quickly if I can. They suggest that before you go to the store, and I'm guilty of not doing this, take a quick inventory of what's in your pantry, refrigerator, and freezer before you go to the store. Just kind of solid advice, because we have a tendency to kind of forget what's there and go out and buy more, which we may not need or may not have the opportunity to use. They also suggest creating meal plans. Planning at least some of your meals during the week helps you avoid buying too much. And if you don't think you'll be able to eat your leftovers within 3 days, label them and store in the freezer. Wow. If only. My technique is to put it in the refrigerator, and then when it turns green, throw it out. Don't do what I do, though. No, that's I love people that are so organized that, everything's labeled and they know how long it's been in there, and that's the way to operate. Store food appropriately, start by only buying what you need, and then, storing your greens and everything in the crisper drawer, tomatoes and bananas on the counter, potatoes and onions in a cold, dark place, and here's one I hadn't thought of, fresh herbs in a glass of water. Who knew? They suggest buying ugly foods, purchasing imperfect food, misshaped or oddly shaped fruits, for instance, and then using leftovers creatively. Find ways to use leftovers rather than tossing out food that isn't fresh. Vegetable scraps and peels can be used for soup stock. Apples and blueberries that are soft work perfectly when you cook them in oatmeal. Slightly wilted vegetables are great for soups or stir fries. And essentially, soup can be made out of pretty much anything. But if you don't, and let's move to, and now we find out whether we have a video or not. Yes, we do. Wonderful. Okay. I've always had thoughts of composting, but to be honest, I didn't really want to take the time and make the investment to do it myself. But thanks now to the Iowa Food Cooperative, we can take advantages of the services of Compost Ninja. The co-op will sell you bags which you can use to collect your own compostable items. And when your bag is full, you just drop it off in one of the bins located behind the co-op. Then these materials are picked up and composted by him. And this can keep up to 40% of your trash out of the landfill. And the Iowa Food Co-op finances the service through the sale of these bags. And they're not incredibly cheap, but I use like one a week. And so that's $2.50 a week. It's costing me to feel better about what I'm putting into the landfill. The other thing that was very surprising to me, I have this tendency to think, there's only certain things that you can compost, and I think when you're doing it yourself, that's true. But he talked about some of them, and this list, and a copy over there, surprised me. And in addition to all these food scraps and things like that you come up with, coffee grounds, coffee filters, tea bags, paper towels, paper towel rolls, soiled paper food packaging, fast food paper packaging, pizza boxes, muffin wrappers, flour and sugar bags, paper plates. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that he will take. And what I've done is I purchased just this small countertop lidded bin to collect my food scraps. Do get a lid. Let me just say that. I thought smell might be a problem, but it really hasn't been. And I use compostable liners. They're on this list. They're BPI certified compostable, and they're just little devils. And when one's filled up, then I just throw it in the big bag, and then when my big bag's full, then I take it back to the co-op. So I think this would be something to look at if you have any interest in doing something like that, because you really can get a lot of stuff going to the composter instead of the landfill. So let's go to the next slide if we can. And kind of switch gears here from food. I hate to get off my favorite topic, but we need to talk about something else. We need to start thinking about how we can conserve energy. Every human on Earth is responsible for the degradation to our environment on a local, national, and global scale. Our unbounded use of fossil fuels to stoke our energy-intensive lifestyles is causing our climate to change. Some ideas for becoming more aware of our personal and local impacts to the environment might be, I don't know if you can read that or not, but if you haven't done it so far, there's a website called www.carbonfootprint.com. And you can go out there and use these free tools to calculate your carbon footprint. And then after you've taken the quiz, you can explore different ways to possibly live more sustainably. Another thing that you might do is learn about water challenges in your community, explore ways to cut your water use. There's lots of suggestions in that regard. Pretty much all you'd have to do is Google how to reduce my water use. And you could talk with your lawmakers and support an effective energy policy, whether it's at the city, state, or federal level. And an effective policy I'm going to define as one that strongly reduces fossil energy use, perhaps by investing in city-owned electric vehicles or anything that supports the development of carbon-free energy sources like solar panels, on homes and municipal buildings. So let's go to the next slide. And let's think about, this is something that we've been doing with our creation care team, looking for ways to save energy in our house of worship, but we're also looking at ways that individually we can do that in our homes. So this, just a few suggestions from the Department of Energy: install and set programmable or smart thermostats, select window treatments that allow you to use natural light while reducing heat loss and gain, switch to Energy Star appliances when you're replacing an appliance, choose energy-saving LED lighting, use an electronic power strip for your electronic equipment and then turn that off when it's not in use, lower your water heater's temperature and install low-flow shower heads, and regularly maintain your heating and cooling systems. Just a few of the things that you might think about doing, both individually and with your faith communities. So let's go to our final slide here and ask the question, why bother? Why do we bother? What is the point of doing these small acts aimed at sustainability? Is changing a LED light bulb really going to have an impact on the changing climate? One answer to this question from the editors of Christian Century in an article called Small Acts, Big Signs. This article talks about the distinction between being a sign and being a solution. Communities of faith are called to be signs which point to God's vision. We cannot end hunger, but we can contribute to and volunteer with organizations that are feeding people, like Urbandale Food Pantry and UCAN. We won't end homelessness, but we can provide our money and volunteer hours to support organizations like Central Iowa Shelter and Services. And our small efforts themselves will not solve the problem of our changing climate. But we do these things out of love and for love. And the time is now for us to understand that the love of the planet is as vital and compelling as love of neighbor. And in reality, amounts to the same thing. Every action we take, no matter how small, to live a life of sustainability is an act of love. Thank you for your time today. And now I'd like to turn it over to Tom Small.
Wow, that was great. Thank you, Bill. You put a lot of time, and I really liked the video. And we're going to talk about that video during our program as well, from personal experience of one of our church members. So what we have now here is, along with thanking Bill, have these words. Just the practical ideas for here and now, especially did you get the idea of local? And that's the whole theme right here. So now, what about the church? What now church might be a good question. That's what we're always wanting to know about, and this is more of a time than ever before to answer that question. So here we are as a community, provide a place for rest, for the soul, and reconnection to live the very center of our divinity. I kind of like those words because it helps us come back to what we are about, and it's our divinity. And so, if by chance you or you know somebody that's overwhelmed, we offer that place and space to process those emotions and turn it into healing and compassion. In your bulletin is an insert here that I'd like to follow along, because there's many ways that the church has offered a way to help heal and provide compassion. This on this side, the grace prayer for rest and reconnection to the soul. So one more method, one more way of praying, one more way of meditating. On this handout, you can do this any place, any time. It's a perfect prayer for walking a labyrinth. If you happen to know where there might be an extra labyrinth available, you can certainly jump on one in our neighborhood here. So, and maybe that might create a lasting experience that you can use again and again, any place, any time. So, here's some ideas. Oh, this one comes from Psalm 46. Be still and know. Pretty good advice. From William James here. The greatest weapon against stress, anxiety, being overwhelmed, believe it or not, is the ability to choose one thought over another. You get the idea? Fill yourself with good thoughts. Replace this. Richard Rohr. Here's a reason why we want to do that. Richard Rohr says, if we do not transform our pain and our suffering story, we will, and we're going to, transmit it to the others around us. The ability of a positive attitude to transform. Okay, a little poem from Mary Oliver. ... Words. Words. ... I'll take grace. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'll take it. Mary Oliver. All right, so here's your homework assignment. Grace, 5 letters. Think of 5 words that start with G-R-A-C-E. I've chosen gratitude. What are you grateful for? As a church, we can lift up the positive aspects of we are grateful for so much, and I can transform my thoughts to thoughts of love. How about R? This is a big one, rest. The church offers a place for rest and reconnection. I am ready to rest and refresh my soul. Sounds like Psalm 23. And forget thoughts of lovelessness and just forgive. A, for appreciation. This is a big one. I appreciate the true beauty in all creation, and to let it go and let go of the illusions of my ego. Only love is real. C and E, compassion. When I show compassion, I am happy, and then I add to the happiness of others. E, empathy and care. I care about other people as myself, and I'm prepared to extend love. So, here's an action prayer technique. Just let us welcome the feelings, our emotions, and restore the soul to love. Touch your heart, and I would encourage everybody here, hand over your heart. Now, follow your breath. Inhale for 5 counts. Exhale for 7 counts. Believe it or not, what we're telling our body through our heart, that it's okay, we are in a safe place. Reconnection. Now, as you're walking, as you're thinking, meditating, praying, number 3, repeat the above words of grace. Gratitude, rest, appreciation, compassion, empathy. You kind of get the idea what's going on there. On the back of your sheet, there's the information on outdoor labyrinth, and you're welcome to do that. We have a few minutes now before we will start our worship service. We want to thank everybody. We want to thank our musicians here today. Tim Debo is our special guest speaker. He'll have a lot to say for us about his experience. In the few minutes we have here, There's a little card that Channing Dutton has provided us with the banners and a card. So in our few minutes now before we start, again, speak to everyone about climate action now. So in your groups of 1s, 2s, and 3s, there. Also, think about how you might correspond, talk to the policymakers in our government. And number 3, give your dollars, effort, votes to those who will act now. We can do more. What did you do once knew about climate change? Those are our thoughts right now. Bill, anything else to add right now? Thank you. So we'll have a few minutes, and then right at 4 o'clock, we're going to hold up the climate banner, and we'll need a couple volunteers. We're going to have everybody come up forward. We're going to take a photo because this is a very special moment, a very special day on Earth Day 2023. Make yourself comfortable. There's restrooms and drinking fountain in the hallways. Again, welcome. Thank you. because we have a chance to take photos of us with the banner. Bill's holding up the banner. We need another volunteer. So please, everybody, come up to the front. Those that are able. Heather, can you volunteer to hold up one end of it? Thank you very much. Yeah, if everybody could stand behind the banner, because this is a very exciting time. It's now 4 o'clock in the Midwest. Beautiful people. This is wonderful. Wow. We have a photo. Now hold that banner while we just say, Earth Day every day. Earth Day every day. Hold that smile, thank you. Look at your neighbor on your left and right and say, you're not alone. You're not alone. All right. Yeah, now. We have a very lively crowd with lots of energy here in this room. This is a great way to be with others on an Earth Day. I want to introduce our pastor here at Covenant Christian Church, Lauren Strait. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It is wonderful to have all of you together. This is a day the Lord has made. It is wonderful that we are gathered together. 3 congregations, Highland Park Christian Church, New Beginnings Christian Church, here at Covenant Christian Church. We are glad to host this event once again. There are some welcomes to be extended, some introductions. I want to say thank you to Bill and Vivian and Jerry, who will be providing leadership in the music, so thank you for that. I want to take a moment to recognize the clergy in the room. Reverend Heather Wackendorf, please stand. Reverend Tim Diebel. We have Reverend Arlene Johnson. Reverend Candace Brown. Reverend Don Hiscox. Is he still here? Reverend Fred G., did he sneak out? I hope he wallows in guilt tomorrow. He was here. I did see him, so it's great to have him with us as well. I'm glad all of you are part of this, And may you be blessed as we begin our journey together. It is vitally important. The time that we took together to share and learn and discover is just a first step. Worshiping is another part. And if you all are courageous enough to put on your coats and wander the labyrinths for a time of meditation and great spiritual development, please take the time to do so. I'll watch you from inside here where it's warm. And now I introduce Heather Walkendorf as she leads us into the beginning of our service.
All you tall people. There we go. So we're going to begin with a land acknowledgement, and we recognize that this is the least that we can do to recognize those who were on this land before us. So we're called to stop, to breathe, and to recognize the original, traditional, indigenous lands that encompass the land on which we gather today. The reason that we do this is important. It offers recognition and respect to Native American peoples who are still very present. It counters the doctrine of discovery with the true story of the people who were already here and creates a broader public awareness of the history that led to this moment. By supporting larger truth-telling and reconciliation efforts, we will hopefully begin to repair relationships with Native communities and with the land. Taking a cue from Indigenous protocol, we are opening this space with reverence and with respect. We invite and honor the truth. We collectively recognize that wherever we are, our Native American ancestors were here first, with sustainable government and land practices and languages that were intertwined with the land itself. So today we acknowledge that our worship and time together takes place on traditional land within the boundaries of the Upper Midwest region of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, home to the Dakota Sioux, Lakota Sioux, Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Illini, Iowa, Otoa, Missouri, Arikara, Cheyenne, Ponca, Anasaboné, Hidatsu, Mandan, and other ancient peoples whose lands we now sit upon, but whose names we have lost. May we stand against continued policies and practices that harm our Native American siblings, our Black siblings, and all our siblings of color.
We'll ask you to center on this image for the call to worship. You will have the call to worship in your bulletin. Think about our planet Earth. Planet Earth spinning silently through space. Celebrate your beauty and your grace, spatial place in our solar system. Planet Earth gleaming green and blue in your ocean currents as they dance and swirl with hope. Planet Earth pulsing with life. Join in praise of all your fauna and flora as they sing their songs to live. Planet Earth enveloped in the breath of God. Bless all your creatures this day and the life-giving breath of God. Planet Earth, our precious, fragile home. We celebrate with all your children God's presence in our planet home. Spin, planet Earth, spin. Sing, planet Earth, sing. Thank you very much. And now if you'll take your chalice hymnal, number 286, This is the Day.
This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Let us join our hearts in prayer. O great Spirit, whose voice we hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear us. We are small and weak. We need your strength and wisdom. Let us walk in beauty and make our eyes behold the red and purple sunset. Make our hands respect the things you have made. Make our ears sharp to hear your voice. Make us wise so that we may understand the things you've taught your people. Let us learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. We seek strength, not to be greater than another, but to fight our greatest enemy, ourselves. Make us always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so when life fades as the fading sunset, our spirits may come to you without shame. This is our prayer. Amen.
Today's scripture is the 8th Psalm. And if you were to pull out most versions or translations of the Bible, you will see that the words before it say that it is to be accompanied by a harp. So a harp is a beautiful instrument. I have a professor from seminary who plays the harp. And it has a very unique sound, though as the strings are plucked and strummed. And it's an instrument that we often use when we are meditating. If you put a meditation CD in or go to you'll often have harp music. It's a beautiful, very resonant sound. But when I listen to the harp, I think that it sounds like rain falling softly on a forest canopy, or like a soft rainfall on petals and foliage of a garden. So imagine today, as I am reading this psalm, which is attributed to David, that the sound of a harp is filling this space. Or better yet, imagine that you are sitting in a garden nook and the music of gentle rainfall on God's creation is the psalm's accompaniment. Most Holy One, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all of the earth. You have placed your glory above the heavens. From the lips of infants and children, you bring forth words of power and praise to answer your adversaries and to silence the hostile and the vengeful. When I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you set in place, what is humanity that you should be mindful of us? Who are we that you should care for us? You have made us barely less than God and crowned us with glory and honor. You have made us responsible for the works of your hands, putting all things at our feet, all sheep and oxen, yes, even the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and whatever swims the paths of the seas. Most Holy One, our Sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
If you will now open your chalice hymnal to 697, Creative God, you spread the earth. Thank you.
Creative God, you spread the earth with life in many forms. The deer and elk and columbine, the bee and humming swarms. Forgive us for each flower and bird now vanished by our hand. Teach us to treat with loving care the creatures of the land. The planet teemed with living things before all human birth, and even fire and beast of prey renewed the life of earth. Forgive us that the last to come we threaten sea and air. Teach us to tend life's fragrant will with wise and tender care. Oh, playful God, you fill the field with lavender and blue, and paint the bird with indigo, with red or tawny hue. Forgive us that we grieve your heart with joyings that you do, and teach us simpler, gentle ways to live on earth with you.
Greetings from Taproot Garden, a salutation that surprises no one more than myself, as I will say more about in the hour or so that I've been allotted. It's an honor. It's an honor to be part of this gathering this afternoon. I have a warm spot in my heart for the Green Chalice Initiative. When the General Assembly of the Christian Church was back in Des Moines a few years ago, we hosted at Taproot Garden an outdoor worship service for attendees early that Sunday morning in the midst of the assembly, at which the co-minister of Green Chalice, Scott Harden-Neary, preached. That experience, along with a connection to a very odd and interesting assortment of worshiping communities across North America called the Wild Church Network, led us to create a monthly worship service outdoors at our farmstead the third Sunday of each month, May through October, you know, the months when God breathes, at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. It's called The Furrow. It's mentioned on the back of your bulletin, along with a website where you can read more about it, read more about the Wild Church Network, and even if you're so inclined, add your email address to receive notifications. But That's to jump ahead in the story. It all started in the kitchen. After all, according to Wendell Berry, eating is an agricultural act. For us, it simply means we had started cooking. Now, that's not to say that we hadn't ever spent time before in that appliance-packed room of our house, but I will admit that the coffee maker and the microwave did the heaviest duty. Previously, our idea of home cooking leaned more in the direction of heating up some frozen something from Schwann's than anything we might have picked up at one of Bill's farmers markets. But for a variety of reasons that are, for our purposes this afternoon, beside the point, that was changing. And the more we learned about cooking, the more we learned about what we were cooking, and the more we learned about what we were cooking, we began to learn about where they came from and how they came to be grown. And what we came to recognize was how utterly energy intensive is everything that comes to our table. Completely dependent upon inexpensive and plentifully available, readily available, mostly fossil fuel-based energy. And I began to wonder what was going to happen when either or one of those factors began to change, which is inevitable that it will. And the only answer I could discern was that I was going to get hungry. And so it was that I determined to be a part of that circle of knowledge that remembers how to grow food on simpler terms. There was just one problem. Oh, there were lots of problems with that, but one significant one was that I had nothing to remember. I had never grown anything other than what one person described as a disturbingly diverse record collection. I'd been a city kid all my life, spending my days either in classrooms or offices or automobiles, certainly not gardens or greenhouses, which is to say that, and as everyone who knows me did in fact say, that the very idea of me exchanging my suits and ties for Carhartts and overalls was preposterous. And yet there it was, this calling that, like gum on the bottom of my shoe, I could not scrape off. A calling, I would argue, to which finally I couldn't say no. So, as some in the room lived through, I quit my perfectly good job. We sold our lovely and convenient, I might add, townhome, bought an acreage, and moved to the country to learn how to grow food. Now, to my wife's enduring credit and in testimony to the elasticity of love, she supported this wild hair idea. Never mind that all of her friends, to a person, said, "Just tell him no," while also having the good sense to hold on to her job, you know, the one that paid a salary, provided benefits like health insurance in the very likely eventuality that this guy who really shouldn't be allowed around tools of any kind, let alone powered ones, would seriously hurt himself along the way. Now, it might sound like bragging, but now 11 years in or so, that still hasn't happened. But it really is not bragging, it's just grateful amazement. Over the course of those years, we've planted around 4 dozen fruit and nut trees, a variety of berry bushes, a garden of close to 1/3 of an acre. We built a small greenhouse that today, in fact, is sheltering somewhere north of 60 seed trays of everything from cabbage to kale, peppers, and tomatoes of an embarrassing number of varieties, and onions and leeks and strawberries and more that will move in a few weeks outside on the off chance spring arrives. And into the ground alongside the potatoes and garlic and beets and green beans and squash and, well, you get the idea. We irrigate when we have to. We fertilize with the very inexpensive alpaca manure from our neighbors and chicken manure from our own chicken coops, which is a whole other story. I mean, we hadn't intended to have chickens, but somehow, and neither of us really can still identify exactly how this came to pass, but we have somehow made room for 3 coops, housing 30 to 40 laying hens at a time. Nor had we imagined tending honeybees, but 6 hives now enjoy the wildflowers coloring the 3-acre native prairie we planted with the help of the DNR and the Fish and Wildlife Service. We install solar panels that power most of the house. We created a labyrinth for an anniversary because marriage is a labyrinth, right? Lori, having eventually herself retired and settling into our little experiment, one particular time a few years ago when she woke up and said, I need something hopeful in the light of cultural events, signed up for a permaculture design certification program taught online by a teacher in New Zealand. Technology is fascinating. Permaculture, one of those hybrid words from permanent and agriculture, permanent culture, that is a field of study that has much in common with the study of biomimicry that you may have heard about, which takes as axiomatic that instead of trying to control nature, we would be wiser to learn from it. We learned, for example, that edge zones, others call them ecotones, edge zones, those places where 2 divergent systems come together, like the meadow and the forest, or the ocean and the shore, divergent systems where they meet. Those are the places of most energy, highest vitality of all. But instead of prizing those edge zones in our own culture and lives, we build walls to keep them apart. We learned that apple trees don't simply need another apple tree to pollinate, but an apple of a different variety. Oh, the trees will grow on their own, or they'll grow among their own kind, but if you want them to bear fruit, the trees have to exist amidst diversity. How have we lost sight of these things? The trees remember, even if we've forgotten. So a reasonable question was and still is, why? Why have 2 terminally degreed office-bound characters done such an outlandish thing? Well, apart from the energy concerns I mentioned earlier and my fears on behalf of future generations of the disappearance of basic food-growing skills, surely by any measure, this is extreme. I agree. It's really not reasonable to think that everyone, anyone, is going to quit their job and move to the country to raise vegetables and chickens and miscellaneous. I suppose that I have come to see my call in a way, this is a little arrogant, I'll just admit, but to see my call in a way similar to the Hebrew prophets, those characters in the Hebrew scriptures, nudged into speaking a contrary word and advocate a contrary way that is largely met with derision at best, if not out and out repression. So again, the question, why? Because I think it's important. I've become increasingly disheartened by the enduring sin of human presumption. We chronically credit ourselves with infallible ingenuity, despite abundant and persistent evidence to the contrary. Today's problems are almost always yesterday's celebrated solutions, and I simply see no reason to believe that that's ever going to change. We need some humility about our innovations. Human hubris, disguised as intellectual brilliance, persistently demonstrates that Copernicus and Galileo ultimately lost the argument. We've never, ever, except only in the most limited sense, moved Earth out of the center of the universe in all the ways that matter. We still believe and behave as though the universe revolves around us and is somehow subservient to us. I have this whimsical suggestion that instead of viewing the stair-step ladder of the days of creation as culminating at the zenith of intent with humankind, might it be from kitchen experience? You ever made biscuits? And you know how you cut them out one at a time and you get to the end and there's all these scraps? And you wad them together and you start over a little bit until you wind up with a few more scraps. It's the same stuff and it's pretty good. Tastes just fine, but it doesn't look very good and it's flawed. Maybe humankind at the end of creation are the scraps. What if we began to see at a little maybe more elevated topic, the universe through the lens of home? David Steindl-Rast is a Catholic monk who created a whole movement around his study of gratitude, and there's a daily email that arrives in our inbox from his organization. Today's, appropriate to Earth Day, is nature is not a place to visit. It is home. Wes Jackson, founder and recently retired in the last few years, president of the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas, and his friend and frequent conversation partner, Wendell Berry, lament how the purpose of most modern education is to prepare us to leave home. But what would it look like, they wonder, if instead the purpose of education became answering the question, what do I need to know in order to go home? This idea about placemaking and respect for where we are, rather than this incessant intrigue about where we might go. Ours is an extractive economy emerging from an extractive mindset. We use things up and then we move on. But eventually, there's going to be no place to go. And we can keep soiling our nest if we choose, but it's going to become an increasingly stinky place to sleep. How differently would we live if we had to live where we are? Dogs, after all, know enough not to soil their own bed. But we haven't apparently quite caught on to that wisdom as of yet. Which brings me to yet another reason I believe all this to be important. We increasingly act as though each of us and each of our actions is discrete, separate, unrelated. We are all these autonomous units bouncing around in the giant pinball machine of life. But the longer Lori and I live on the farmstead, the more nature teaches us to the contrary. The seen and the unseen are constantly in concert, moving and morphing and trading death for life, waste for wonder. All that compost story, transforming waste to wonder. It's said that in a single teaspoon of soil are more living creatures than live on the surface of the earth. Now, if that little factoid sounds more interesting than relevant, consider John Muir's familiar and powerful observation that when we try to pick out anything by itself in nature, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. And as that iconic photograph from outer space graphically reminds us, there is more universe out there than us. But then, of course, we might add that we're not merely connected to everything else in the universe, but also to the one who created it as well, and whose interests with respect to it all we are charged with serving. Tending, not depleting, honoring, not exhausting, receiving as an abundant gift rather than enslaving like chattel. Well, ever more mindful of our connectedness. Now, almost 12 years in, we're still listening, still hearing and responding to this bizarre, ludicrous call, and settling into this new and larger comprehension of what it means to be home. Learning, to be sure. Surprisingly, having fun. Feeling healthier, more vital, eating pretty darn well, enjoying the presence of guests when they come, children in particular, who will wonder about what I've just pulled out of the ground and wonder what I'm going to do with it and wonder if they can have it, and wiping it off on their pants and eating it. It feels like ministry. It feels like we're contributing something. In the meantime, it feels like we're doing something that God needs us to be doing. And on a scale of 1 to 100, we have rocketed our expertise all the way up to 2.5. Which is to say, we have a long way to go. Growth we are learning in us, just as in the garden, doesn't happen by leaps and bounds, but steadily, incrementally, seed by sprinkle, by plow, by hoe, by bud, by blossom, by fruit, little by little. And connected, we grow. Perhaps we might inspire you to do a little growing as well.
Well, thank you, Tim. Yes, Tim is the author of the book, Home by Another Way, Harvesting Taproot's Wisdom. And we requested that Tim bring copies for sale today and see Tim afterwards because it is a very good book. I've learned a lot from that. Our next song will be 659 in your chalice hymnal. 659, what does the Lord require for praise?
What does the Lord require for praise and offering? What sacrifice desire or tribute bid you bring? To justice, love, mercy, walk humbly with your God. People of earth, give ear. Should you not justice know? Will God your pleading hear? While crime and cruelty grow, do justice, love, mercy, walk humbly with your God. How shall our life fulfill God's law so hard and high? Let God undo our will with grace to fortify. Then justly in mercy we'll humbly walk with God.
Segment number 9, Speaking Out for Creation. We'd invite Emily, if you'd like to come up here, and Emily has prepared a message for us about speaking out for communications. Emily?
I go to school almost every day, and when I get there, the parking lot is usually full with a bunch of trash all over the yard and the parking lot. Why can't they just pick up their lunch and put it in the trash? I don't know where a singular trash can is outside of my school. I know there's trash cans, there's several trash cans inside, and there's like one in every corner. When they're gonna go in the building anyway, why can't they just take their lunch trash and take it inside? Their pizza boxes, their fast food bags, whatever it is, why can't they just walk in and throw it away? It's not that far to take your trash to a trash can, and there's also many different things that would involve the proper disposing of the trash, which requires more money and more things that more people have to be involved with and willing to help to get all this trash and recycling to the responsible places to actually be sustainable for our country and the world. But why is it so hard to walk not very far to throw something away? Why is it just easier? I understand it's easier just to throw it on the ground, but why? Why? We need to make the world better, since it's not difficult to walk, but it's hard to get people to do the right thing sometimes because they think what they think is better, and they may be right and they may be wrong. But just taking those small steps to do the right thing helps in so many different ways because it's involved with so many people. Everything leads to a lot of people to continue to improve all the things that need to be improved with the climate and the pollution and everything else. So if we can just walk those few steps to continue to improve our world, it'd be quite great.
Thank you, Emily. That is so true. We have another young woman that has grown up in our church here, and she sends us greetings today. In high school, she decided to make her thoughts of a career change into something that would involve her passion in the environment. This is from Leah Denny. Happy Earth Day, everyone. I thought I would give you a little update on what I've been doing, what I've been up to. After graduating in 2021 from Drake University with a degree in sustainability and resilience, I went to work at HDR, an engineering firm in their solid waste group. I worked there for a year, finding a way to combine sustainability with landfill planning, an ironic position. While my team members were great, I realized that standing in the rain at landfills collecting samples was not my passion. Can you imagine on a day like this and make a face and then do woo? You know, I'm going to grab a sample here from the landfill. Woo. All right. Leo. I started a new position. Okay, that wasn't her passion. I started a new position in March of this year at ERM CVS as a corporate assurance associate. In this position, I get to verify that the sustainability claims large companies are making are accurate. It's an amazing opportunity to connect with some of the most environmentally friendly companies in the world, thinking globally here. This is just amazing. Claims that large companies are making are accurate. It's an amazing opportunity to connect with some of the most environmentally friendly companies in the world while encouraging them to set even more challenging environmental goals. Wow. Leah writes, I would like to thank the congregation for their commitment to the Green Chalice program. Thank you, Leah, for those comments. So, finally, then the next item here is item number 10, announcements. We have the 3 Green Chalice churches here, New Beginnings. What are we doing? What Now Church? New Beginnings Christian Church has monthly meetings of the Green Chalice team, finding new ways to care for creation. They're currently at the beginning of their stages of becoming a certified Green Chalice church. Keep up the good work. Highland Park Christian Church has been an inspiration also to us. Last year, Highland Park Christian Church found many places, sometimes little places, to grow food, produce, vegetables on their land. And last year they donated over 1,500 pounds of vegetables and produce. Well, thanks to Highland Park, to Bill Brown and others, the volunteers there, they are an inspiration to us, and we want to do something as well. Here at Covenant Christian Church, we want you to enjoy the outdoor labyrinths at park at any time. In fact, we are adding a new outdoor walking labyrinth. You may have noticed all the flags out here on the north slope. We are going to be planting in a few weeks 8 more fruit trees. We wish we had done that 10 years ago. And speaking of exciting things, we went to Highland Park and visited with LSI, Lutheran Services, and their program for providing garden space to families of former refugees now living in the area. LSI, a very successful program, now serving over 200 families, providing garden space in 20 different garden places. we potentially have initially here place for 4 potential gardens, and those are flagged south of the church. Our board and our congregation are in a time of discernment to decide what to do next and hopefully move along in that project. Now, wrapping it up, in the back there are light bulbs. Last year our youth gave away 440 LED light bulbs. This year we have 144 more, so the total will be 588 light bulbs, saving $3,611 a year of electricity. So that's our project. On the way out, grab 2 more and install those light bulbs for us. So we have song number 696, Chalice Hymnal for Beauty of Meadows.
For beauty of meadows, for grandeur of trees, for flowers of woodlands, for creatures of seas, for all you created and gave us to share, we praise you, Creator, extolling your care. As stewards of beauty, received at your hand, as creatures who hear your most urgent command, we turn from our wasteful destruction of life, confessing our failures, confessing our strife. Teach us once again to be gardeners in peace. All nature around us is ours but on lease. Your name we would hallow in all that we do, fulfilling our calling, creating with you.
It has been a joy gathering with all of you this day. I hope you have something to take home with you in addition to light bulbs. Didn't he mention light bulbs? Take light bulbs home with you. For our benediction, I would like to read you the Earth Prayer by Mark Nepo. O endless Creator, force of life, seat of unconscious, Dharma, Atman, Ra, Kalb, dear center of our love, Christ light, Yahweh, Allah, Mawu, mother of the universe. Let us, when swimming with the stream, become the stream. Let us, when moving with the music, become the music. Let us, when rocking the wounded, become the suffering. Let us live deep enough till there is only one direction, and slow enough till there is only the beginning of time, and loud enough in our hearts till there is no need to speak. Let us live for the grace beneath all we want. Let it, in everything, be seen and everyone, till we admit to the mystery that when I look deep enough into you, I find me, and when you dare to hear my fear in the recess of your heart, you recognize it as your secret, which you thought no one else knew. Oh, let us embrace the unexpected moment of unity as the atom of God. Let us have the courage to hold each other when we break and worship what unfolds. O nameless Spirit that is not done with us, let us love without a net, beyond the fear of death, until the speck of peace we guard so well becomes the world. Amen. Thank you for gathering.